The subject of wine clubs has come up a number of times in my conversations with wine lovers. Whether the wines being offered are too good to be true for the price is the main question that I get asked. But I guess the answer really depends upon your expectations.
Hello, and welcome back. You're tuned in to Wine in 9, where all you need to learn about wine in 9 minutes or less. Here's your host, Bob Cappuccino.
Generally speaking, wine clubs are a pretty good deal. But like any other club or subscription-based service, you have to really make sure that the value, in this case making sure you always get great wines, is really there and worth the effort. So let's start with the kinds of clubs you might encounter. Wineries often have wine of the month clubs or special release clubs, or a combo of both. These usually have you sign up and commit to receive a selection or two from the winery's cellars at a pre-specified price, which may or may not include the cost of delivery. Sometimes they are the same wines you can find in your local shop, and sometimes they offer wines that are made exclusively for the club. If it's the former, they're usually no cheaper than the wine shop, and if it's the latter, as a special production wine, they'll most surely be more expensive. Fine wine shops offer wine of the month clubs that promote wines that have been specifically selected as representative of great value that the wine buyer has ferreted out especially for his clientele. Now normally there's no upfront commitment, you just buy as needed. However, sometimes the shop will run the program similar to those offered by wineries. You agree to a certain price level, say 2 bottles for $29.99 each month for 3, 6, or 12 months. Now once again, the price may or may not include delivery, so pay attention. If it doesn't, you'll probably expect more in the bottle because there is no delivery cost built in. Now, very progressive wine shops might have a couple of different price levels and even focus on particular wine types, white or red, or even a region of production like Spanish wines or California wines or Italian wines, whatever. I recommend these types of wine merchant clubs because they are more tailored to your interests or they provide a greater vehicle for discovery. Moreover, if you don't like the selection, your wine merchant will most likely take it back. And if you like the selection, you can buy another bottle, or maybe even a case. And the added benefit is also that now your merchant has an idea of what your particular preferences are, and he'll guide you better. In both the winery and the wine shop examples, you can have a pretty good idea of the quality and value you are getting. So for me, that's a safer bet. Now, there are a lot of wine clubs that have popped up that are organized by nonprofit organizations, radio stations, newspapers, magazines, even television networks. So I did a little sleuthing, and I learned that a few of these clubs are pretty much identical. And this indicates to me that there's a third-party company selecting the wine and managing the club for the organization. And often, they'll give the wines some cutesy names that correspond to an organization's focus or a well-regarded radio program or a movie. But generally, these wines are mass-produced and often under-deliver value-wise. Now, there are even wine clubs that are just wine clubs with no brick-and-mortar location. And they're usually offered in online sites or in good old mail catalogs. So you might ask, how good can they be? Who's standing behind these wines? And the answer is a mixed bag, a true caveat emptor situation. Generally, you get what you pay for. So think about this. If you pay $16 per bottle, you must remember that the purveyor needs to work with an average cost of $8 to $10 to make a profit. Therefore, the sources of the wine will generally come from larger wine companies or co-ops. Now, this doesn't mean the wines aren't good, but they are probably very basic examples of their type and style and region. You should expect wines that will come from the broadest appellations like Bordeaux, Bordeaux Supérieur, as opposed to one of the villages of the Medoc, California or North Coast appellation as opposed to coming from Napa or Sonoma or Mendocino. And in Tuscany, it would be just Toscano as opposed to coming from Montalcino or Montepulciano or Chianti Classico. So as a rule, don't expect to get a memorable, complex, and ageable wine. Don't expect wines from regions where production is generally low and that command higher prices. So don't expect Burgundies or Barolo or Brunello or Amarone. But should any of these wines be offered, I can tell you they'll be very weak examples of their type. There's no free lunch in the wine business. I recently ordered a selection of wine from a wine club promoted by a newspaper. and I expected to receive good, basic wines based on the price I paid. I was right. That's what was in the case. A couple of decent Italian Rossos, a few modest California wines from larger wineries. But surprisingly, there were a few wines that were actually from medium and large-sized Spanish and Portuguese cantinas. And these delivered above-average satisfaction. Not surprising, since both Spain and Portugal currently offer really great value, so you should check them out. In the main, I must say that for what I paid, I got a good case of everyday wines with a couple of nice surprises. And the club even offered me a bonus on the next purchase that I might make. So that was kind of interesting. But look, there's no guarantee. And it would be very wise to exercise some caution here. But if you do, it should be worth it. It's very likely you're not going to be wowed by every single bottle that you're sent. But that's the fun of it. Just try to make sure that you're picking a good source. So, before you opt into any wine club, do a little homework. Look at the wines being offered. Google the brand and see what pops up. If you can't find the brand, it's probably a label for a mass producer, something maybe they made up for that particular organization. If it names a producer, then Google that. If it only shows some initials or numbers with a town name, it is most assuredly a wine from a co-op or a bottling company or a winery that just doesn't want to keep its name out there. Oh, and don't forget to check vintages. Wine clubs are a great way to get rid of old vintages that have not sold and wines from off vintages that the winery needs to move out quickly. Now again, the wine might be eminently drinkable, but be aware of what you're buying. So to wrap it all up, trust the clubs from wineries you may already know and like. Look to a good wine merchant for carefully chosen offerings that are meant to bring you back as a customer. Be careful of all the others. Thanks again for joining me on Wine in 9. This is Bob Cappuccino.
Thanks for listening to Wine in 9. We hope we used your 9 minutes wisely. If so, or if not, please let us know. Give us your feedback, good, bad, whatever. We'd love to hear from you. Look for Wine in 9 across social media. We're at winein9.com, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So grab a glass and join, subscribe, download, tweet, whichever you choose. Or you can go to our home base at winein9.com. Want to email? We're at info@winein9.com.